Welcome back to the Keto Reset series. This is video number 2. If you missed the first one, go back and watch it because we set up your foundation, the tools that you're going to need, what you need to gather, how you're going to be checking your blood sugar, and we kind of went over what does keto really mean. And today we're taking the next step and we're talking about why ketosis is such a powerful metabolic state, especially for women over 35, and why my goal personally is to move in and out of ketosis regularly, why it gives you that clean, steady, deep clean your whole house type energy. And so at the end, we are going to make this very practical. By the end of the video, you are going to know exactly how to start producing ketones. We're not going to go too fast. There should be no crashing. We're not going to trigger the keto flu. We're going to do this gently, but in the most efficient way that I know. So if you're new here, hi, I am Ryan. I am a keto coach. I am a certified advocate through the Metabolic Terrain Institute of Health. And I help men and women who are suffering with metabolic issues reclaim their health and their vitality through lifestyle changes. So I think we can just jump right in. I have some slides as usual, so I'm going to pop those up and we're going to get into it. Okay. So before we get into the how, I think it is really important that you really understand why ketosis is such a powerful healing state for your body. If you're here, it's probably because you already are interested in the ketogenic diet. Maybe you're here to lose some weight. Maybe you're here because you heard about some of the benefits, but let's go a little bit deeper into that right now. So ketosis is a healing metabolic state for the body, and this is true no matter where your ancestors are from, right? All throughout human history, people have naturally moved between times of eating and not eating. And sometimes it was with the season, sometimes it was because of drought, sometimes it was because of travel or migration. Um, but the reality is that you ate when there was food available and you didn't when there wasn't. And our metabolisms are built around this kind of rhythm, not this constant intake that we have grown so accustomed to today. And it's during those natural gaps when our bodies be able to slip into ketosis, right? It wasn't a diet, right? It wasn't a trend. This is what your body actually just does, right? And in that state, your body doesn't just burn fat, it repairs itself. And your body actually has two major cleanup systems. The first is autophagy, and that is when your body recycles the old, weak, their damaged cells so that you can rebuild healthier ones. And the second is apoptosis, and that is basically cell death. It's controlled cell death. It's a way of your body removing the cells that are too damaged to actually save. And these systems aren't optional, right? They are how your body prevents bigger problems from happening down the line. And that includes preventing chronic disease, reducing cancer risk. And the issue is that most of us never access these systems anymore because we're eating all day long. We're snacking at night. We spike our glucose over and over throughout a day. And when your glucose and your insulin are always high, your body cannot clean itself up. And that repair is not switched on. So, what ends up happening is we're walking around carrying these damaged cells that we should have cleared out. And our inflammation is going to stay high. We're going to be tired. We're going to have more brain fog. And our hormones might feel more chaotic. Our metabolism is going to slow down. And we're aging faster at a cellular level, right? So this is where ketosis becomes a tool It's a strategic tool that we can utilize because ketosis is going to turn those repair pathways back on. And you can do so without having to starve yourself, without having to go into, you know, a constant state of fasting. So you don't have to stress out your hormones. So you get all the benefits of fasting. You get the cellular cleanup, you get that restoration, that mental clarity, but you're still able to eat, right? So that's the good side. And you're giving your body a clean, steady state of fuel, and it's not going to spike your insulin. It's not going to shut off those healing processes. And so that is why I'm a big fan of ketosis, and I try to stay in it as much as possible. And it's not, a trend or, something that's just fashionable. It's not even about weight loss, right? It's about healing, repairing, and trying to mitigate some of the daily damage that we are doing to ourselves every day just by existing. So quiet as it's kept, ketosis is being used in places that we probably don't hear a lot about, um, not just for weight loss, right? Which is probably how we've heard about it, but people are using it for performance, for healing, for recovery. And so we could start with like athletes. So endurance athletes, strength athletes, people who train at like a high intensity are using ketogenic approaches because it's going to help them burn fat efficiently without sacrificing their muscle. And this is the part that most people miss. You're not going to starve, right? You're not um, white knuckling your way through your hunger. You're giving your body a steady, reliable source of fuel that won't crash you midday or crash you throughout your workout. And we know ketosis has also been used for decades for neurological conditions like epilepsy. But there's research now showing that there is potential use for Parkinson's, for Alzheimer's, for other neurological diseases, because the brain loves ketones. And a lot of clinicians are using ketosis as a way to calm the brain, to stabilize energy, and to help with recovery. And then there's cancer, right? And I think this is the part that most people don't really hear about. And at MTIH, Metabolic Terrain Institute of Health, where I was trained to be an advocate using a ketogenic diet, ketosis is used strategically as part of a metabolic approach to cancer. And so practitioners will work side by side with oncologists to support patients through their that are ongoing like treatment for cancer. And that is because cancer cells and healthy cells run on fuel differently. So healthy cells are flexible, right? They can use glucose or they can use ketones, but cancer cells are not. And they depend heavily on glucose and they struggle to adapt when things change, right? So when you lower your glucose and you are raising your ketones, you're creating a metabolic environment where healthy cells can thrive, but cancer cells do not. And so this adds stress to cancer cells and it makes them more vulnerable while protecting your normal cells. And so the idea is this: if a metabolic state can help someone heal from cancer, that same metabolic state can very likely help prevent cancer, right? And that's what we want. And we see that the number of people that are getting diagnosed with cancer every single day is rising, right? So prevention is not optional, it is essential. So when I talk about ketosis being a tool, this is not as a trend, right? This is a metabolic state that's being used in athletics, it's being used in medicine, um, cancer healing, even in the military. It's being used because it actually works. So I've been asked, what is the research in terms of like menopausal women and so on. And I wish I could give you um, a lot of long-term studies on women over 35 that have been using a ketogenic diet through perimenopause and menopause. But the truth is that women's health is one of the least studied and least funded areas of medicine. And many trials don't even include women, or if they do, we are underrepresented. Often we are excluded because of our hormones being too cyclical. So it's kind of messy to get clean data from that. And even in animal studies, they often use male mice and they don't include female mice for the same reason. So when it comes to keto and women's hormones, we don't have nearly as much research as we should have, in my opinion. And what we do have are some very small studies, a lot of clinical experience, and a lot of anecdotal evidence from people who've actually tried it. Um, so, what we do know, though, is that glucose metabolism in the brain is tied to estrogen. And so your brain uses transporters that work much better when estrogen is at healthier levels, right? But as your estrogen starts to drop or fluctuate in perimenopause, that glucose delivery to your brain is going to become less reliable. And that's when we start to notice things like brain fog, right? That, like, oh, where did I put my things? Or what did I come into this room for? Um, your mood might change. You might have that tired but wired sort of feeling. So ketones don't rely on that same estrogen dependent pathway. Your brain can pull ketones in and use them for fuel even when your estrogen is fluctuating all over the place. And this is another one of the reasons why I like spending a lot of my time in ketosis, because I'm going to give my brain that clean, steady fuel when my hormones are not steady. And we also have a lot of data and clinical experience with women with PCOS, which is fundamentally a problem relating to insulin resistance. So when women lower their carbs, they are able to improve insulin sensitivity and spend time, in ketosis. They'll have improvement in their cycle. They'll have reduced androgens, better blood sugar control. They'll be able to lose weight much easier. Okay. And that may not be every woman because every woman is different. But the trend is that when we bring our insulin down, we reduce that constant glucose roller coaster, hormones and hormonal symptoms can improve. Okay. So, how do you actually do it? So, now that you know that there are some benefits to being in a ketogenic state, how do you actually do it? How do we start producing ketones so we can be feeling our best? And we're not going to do anything extreme to start. It's not going to be extreme at all, ever, but we're not going to start with a very stressing way of getting into ketosis. The plan is, right? So if you're interested in getting into ketosis, you want to be sure that you're in it, you've had trouble getting in, this is going to get you there. Okay. Here's the plan. You're going to ride out your overnight fast. Let's say you stop eating 6, 7 p.m., not eating again in the morning until the morning, right? You're riding out your overnight fast and you're going to extend that into the morning. And since you're doing that, your body is already going to be closer to a fat burning when you wake up. So you're going to take advantage of that. Okay. And what we're doing now is you're giving your body the kind of fuel that's going to keep you in that fat burning zone and help you start producing ketones on your own. So we're going to do this with a simple ratio. It'll be a 3-to-1 fat to protein ratio. That means that for every gram of protein that you eat, you want to pair that with 3 grams of fat. Okay. And we're going to keep our protein moderate. So traditionally, you know that a ketogenic diet is high fat, moderate protein, and very low carbohydrates. So we want to keep that protein moderate for a reason, because too much protein can trigger a process called gluconeogenesis. And that is when your body turns excess protein into glucose, and that can slow down and prevent you getting into ketosis. Okay. And it's actually more likely to happen in someone who tends to rely on glucose a lot. So a lot of women are going to fall into this category. So you really want to be mindful of the amount of protein that you take in. And I know we talk about having a lot of protein and it's great for satiety, but if you're trying to make ketones, you want to start with them low. And then as you get into it, you can possibly later increase your protein intake. So to make this simple, you want to start with about 15 to 20 grams of protein or so for your breakfast. That is it. Okay. And you want to pair that with about 45 to 60 grams of fat. You don't need to recalculate this every day. And in fact, you probably shouldn't, right? You should pick a breakfast that you like and then just keep repeating it every day, so that one, you don't have to go through that process every morning of figuring out if your ratios are correct, right? So we want to keep everything the same, let your metabolism adjust. And I know last week I suggested that you gather your fat sources. So now you're going to be able to put them to use. So your fat can come from butter, from ghee, from tallow, from coconut oil, MCT oil. You could even use like hard cheeses. You can use heavy cream. MCT oil is the fastest way to begin producing ketones because it bypasses digestion and goes straight to the liver, but you need to go slow with it. So if you do too much too fast, you're more than likely going to get diarrhea. Okay, so if you decide to take that route, just start easy, maybe mix it with some other fats as well. So here's what this will actually look like in real life. So I will often make like a fatty coffee or a fatty tea, and I will add in MCT oil. I will add in butter. I will cook some eggs in the morning, 2 to 3 eggs, scrambled with a lots of butter added in there. So that's about 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter or whatever oils that I'm using, whatever fat that I'm using. But you could do eggs cooked in butter. You could do some heavy cream in your coffee. You could do ground beef, 2 to 3 ounces of ground beef, and add some extra ghee, extra tallow. You could have bacon and just add some extra fat to that in your coffee. You want to keep it simple, right? This is not going to be a very filling, bulk heavy meal, but it's going to be very calorically dense. And it should keep you satiated for the most of the morning, all of the morning. Okay. I want you to remember that 1 tablespoon of fat, so butter, ghee, tallow, is about 12 grams of fat. Okay, so that will help you to build your plate. And so as we go forward this week, you are only going to change your breakfast. Okay, your lunch and dinner, you can keep them the same. So you're kind of warming up your metabolism. We're not shocking it. And we're going to do this for a full week and give your body some time to adjust. Okay. So talking about some more what this looks like on your plate, I have this table here. You can, I don't know, take a picture of it if that is helpful. So connecting it to real food, what does that look like in terms of a 3-to-1 ratio? So again, we want about 15 to 20 grams of protein, right? More or less, and 3 times that in fat. And that's gonna nudge you to produce those ketones. That's what we want, right? So here are some options that will fall into that sweet spot. So 3 eggs is about 18 grams of protein, about 15 grams of fat. And you can see the same for the bacon, the ribeye. a tin of sardines. And then I put the fat amount in the chart because it lets you know how much extra fat you need to add. So eggs already have fat, right? 15 grams. So you'll still need to add additional fat to that to help you get to that ratio. Okay, so just remember again, 1 tablespoon of butter, fat, or any kind of fat, ghee, tallow is about 12 grams of fat. So depending on your protein choice, you'll be adding anywhere from 2 to 4 tablespoons of fat. You can add cheese, like hard cheese, but notice that you're also going to get some protein with that. So hard cheese is going to give you about like 14 to 16 grams of protein if you were to do like 2 ounces of cheese. But you have to look at your labels. You really are going to need to read your labels to be sure and to know what you are getting. Okay. And the goal here is not perfection. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. And you need to make sure you pay attention to that fat. And at first, it's going to feel kind of strange because we're not used to eating high fat. But this is what's going to help you shift into creating those ketones and keep you satiated so that you can actually last through the morning. Okay? Because that is our goal to start. Okay. So here are action steps. So if you're interested in tapping into this ketogenic state and you are joining me on this journey, right? We want to see if we can get into ketosis, stay in ketosis, figure out how to do this the right way. I'm walking you through it. We're doing it together. So here is your action plan, and we're going to keep it simple. We're going to keep it steady. We're going to keep it repeatable. Your job is to start your day with that 3-to-1 fat to protein ratio. Have the same breakfast every day. Okay. Don't switch it up yet. Pick the protein you like, add the fat that you need. Let your body get used to using fat as fuel first thing in the morning. And then the rest of the day for this week, you are going to eat your normal food. So last week I talked about making sure you pick up those electrolytes. You're going to need to start taking your electrolytes first thing in the morning. So if you're doing the Ultima that I linked, you can just put 1 scoop in, or if you're doing like LMNT, you would use 1 packet and put that in, a good amount of water, and you want to drink that in the morning. Okay, because if you don't replace those electrolytes, you are going to feel it. Ketosis will pull electrolytes out of your system, so you need to replace them. We don't want to feel bad. Okay, so have your electrolyte drink before you have your breakfast, and just make sure if you decide to go with one that is different than what I suggested, that you look at the carbs. It should not have carbs in it. Okay, so I linked the one below that I'm using. You can take a look at that one. And hydration is non-negotiable. So get your water in. They say about half your weight in ounces of water at least. So that would be like 60 to 100 ounces of water. Spread it out throughout the day. Don't try to chug it all at once. Don't be like me where you're trying to drink it at night before you go to bed and then you regret it. Another suggestion is to take your multivitamin every day. I personally use the brand Adapt Naturals. I'm not sponsored by them. I just really like their supplements. When you start moving into ketosis, especially if you're not eating a big variety of foods, it's easy for you to miss certain micronutrients. We don't want to do that. We want to keep you supported. You'll hear women say, "Oh, I went on the ketogenic diet and my hair fell out," or my hair's thinning. We don't want those things to happen. You want to make sure that you are getting your nutrition in. And if you're interested, I can show some of the supplements that I take and why I take them, so you can decide maybe what works for you. You can do that in another video. But for right now, we're sticking to that 3-to-1 ratio. You're going to make sure you get your electrolytes in, make sure you get your water in, take your multivitamin. Last week, I suggested that you test your blood sugar to get a baseline. The best time to check it would be in the morning, and that would be your fasting blood glucose. And that tells you a lot about how your insulin is behaving and how close you are to fat burning. So if you want to have some bonus data on top of that, you can also check about an hour and a half to 2 hours after you have your 3-to-1 fat to protein ratio breakfast because your breakfast has no carbs in it. There should not be any carbs in your breakfast except for what naturally occurs in like the eggs or whatever. But you're not adding anything. You're not adding any vegetables. Nothing is added to that breakfast. So you should not see too much of a spike in your glucose when you have that kind of breakfast. A small rise after you eat is normal, but anything that's too big will tell you that you probably need to tweak your protein and your fat, right? You could be overdoing your protein. You might need to increase your fat. So you want to see your fasting glucose somewhere between 75 to 90-ish, right? If it's in the 90s or if it's in the low hundreds, it's not really something to panic over, right? So there are a lot of factors that can affect your morning glucose, and it can be higher if you don't have a good night's sleep. It can be higher if you're feeling stressed, if you're coming down with a cold. There's so many reasons, but you're going to watch the trend and you want to see if you can track at least for 3 days out of the week and take a look and see what your blood glucose is doing in the morning. Okay. If you do decide you want to check it after you have your breakfast to see what your blood sugar is doing, it should only bump up by about 5 to 15 points if you're not having carbs. Anything higher is going to kind of give you a clue that maybe you ate too much protein, maybe you need to increase your fat. Okay. If you make this change to your breakfast consistently, you're going to see your body respond and you're going to wake up feeling different. You're going to go through your morning different. So I'm really excited to see what you do. Okay. So if you're all in, let me know down below that you're all in. I'll be doing it with you. So have a beautiful week and I'll see you next week. And next week we'll go through the next stage and we'll ramp it up a little bit. Okay. So thank you for joining me and I hope to see you next week. Take care. Bye.